Stroke deep center field. Torres chasing and is gone, and the party is on in the Hub City. And he launches this one into the trays. Goodbye. And add to it. Straight to the roost. And whoever operates the horn has been standing on it.
Hey, Golden Eagle fans, I'm Southern Miss Stadium announcer Jackson Walker, and you're listening to Nasty Bunch and Beyond.
How's it going, y'all? Welcome in to another episode of Nasty Bunch and Beyond. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. Man, we got a lot of good stuff to talk about today. The majority of it is baseball related, but we do have some good stuff to talk about with some other Southern Miss sports as well. Southern Miss athletics doing big things across the board. We love to see it, and we will get into that here in a little bit. But before we do that, I just want to let everybody know that this episode of Nasty Bunch and Beyond is brought to you by our partners at To The Top Collective. You can go to www.tothetopcollective.com and consider joining there. Consider giving donations there to help directly impact the lives of Southern Miss student athletes, which in turn makes a direct impact on Southern Miss athletics as a whole. So be sure to go do that. This episode is also brought to you by To The Top merch. You can go to tothetopmerch.myshopify.com and use our promo code NastyBunchPod to get 20% off your entire purchase, like this hat I'm wearing here. If you're watching on YouTube, you see this very nice hat that I have worn so many times over the last 6 months or however long I've had it now. They got all kinds of great stuff there. So be sure to go there, use our promo code, enjoy 20% off. And then our other partner, Shantyman Premium Jerky, you can go to shantymanfoods.com and use our promo code SMTTT to get 30% off your entire purchase there. If you like premium jerky, meat sticks, stuff of that nature, plenty of flavors to choose from. Go treat yourself there and get you 30% off, and use that promo code, and that'll let them know that we sent you over there. So, okay, so we're going to start with baseball. Obviously, another great weekend for the Southern Miss baseball team. Went into Harrisonburg, Virginia, played James Madison, and swept the Dukes. It was, the first game, it kind of got off to a rocky start. After taking a 2-0 lead in the top of the third, went down 5-2. And then, up until the seventh inning, things were, the vibes were kind of off. It was feeling like, man, is this really happening? One of those type situations. Graydon Harris, I wouldn't say it was, he didn't have his best stuff that Friday is how I'll put it. But with that being said, those 5 earned runs that he gave up, those uncharacteristic 5 runs that were given up, it wasn't necessarily all his fault because, Ty Long, he was absolutely outstanding at third base the weekend before in the sweep against UL Monroe. And, he had a couple of plays where, it just the ball didn't bounce the right way over there at third, and, he just wasn't able to get the play done. And that ultimately, it was a domino effect that led to, I'd say, probably 3 or 4 of those runs that ended up going on Graydon's record there were probably due to that. But other than that one hiccup, I thought, especially Ty, he in the 2 games he played, he had 3 hits in 2 games. So he didn't play in the second game of the series, played in the first and the third game, and, got 2 hits in his time at the plate, which I thought was great. And he rebounded well the rest of his time at third base in that first game. And then I thought he did really well there in the third game too. So anyway, that was the rough start. They were down 5-2 in the bottom of the 5th of that first game. Then there was a 6-run explosion in the top of the 7th inning. It was a combination of walks. There were the 2 leadoff walks, basically. First 2 guys for Southern walked. You had a single, a double, a wild pitch, you name it. Dre Barrett hit a 2-run homer. It was like the cherry on top there in that top of the 7th inning of the first game. And next thing you know, after being down 5-2, the Eagles were up 8-5. And then Colby Allen comes in for the final 3 innings, so the bottom of the 7th, 8th, and 9th, and is just nails to close it out. He was outstanding overall. Aside from the shaky start to that game, I thought the Eagles did a great job all around. Ended up with 10 hits in the game, which if you watch that game up to before the 7th inning, you were thinking, well, I don't know if that's going to happen, but it did. And then they carried the momentum from that game into the rest of the series. So Eagles rally in the 7th. They win that first game. Colby Allen was great. Got his 2nd save of the season. And before we get into the game, too, I want to say the James Madison ESPN Plus broadcast, I enjoyed it. The second game, or the second day on Saturday, they had like some signal issues that made it, a little bit tough to listen to. But as far as like the commentators, the broadcasters themselves, their knowledge, they were very complimentary of Southern Miss, and they weren't too biased toward James Madison. I thought it was just really good commentary, and I thought they really knew their stuff. And it also helps that I was listening during that first game, and they were doing those mid-game interviews on TV, and next thing I know, I'm hearing a quote from Ty Long that that was one of our Southern Miss Golden Eagle on SI quotes that I wrote a piece about Ty Long leading up to that weekend series, and they picked it up and gave it some airtime on the broadcast. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I appreciate them for doing that, because I think I like it when, don't get me wrong, I like it when anybody in Mississippi, in the local area, and anybody in Mississippi in general listens to this stuff. But it's really cool when people that far away can kind of pick up on it. And game 2, the Eagles broke it open in the top of the 4th inning with a Joey 3-run homer, Joey Urban, to make it 6-0. Then in the top of the 8th, Ben Higdon also had a 3-run homer, made it 11-0. Camden Clark, he was outstanding again. He had the 15 strikeout performance last weekend. That was going to be hard to top, but overall, I thought he did a great job. It was 6 innings of work. He's 7-0 on the year now. He had 9 strikeouts through those 6 innings, and man, he was just outstanding. Night and day difference for Camden Clark's second road start at James Madison compared to that first one he had in Mobile, South Alabama. So once again, it was just a great overall game for the Eagles in that second one. This was one of the more balanced weekends I've seen all season. I've watched every single game. I've been here through, the ups, the downs, all of it. And I feel like this past weekend was one of the more complete weekends we've seen from top to bottom. Now, obviously, like I said, things could have gone a little bit better in the first half of that game 1. But still, I think overall, looking at it, it was one of the best weekends we've seen from this team in a long time. So, and it couldn't be happening at a better time either. This is just outstanding timing on their part. So, again, Camden Clark, he was great. The bullpen was outstanding again in that one. Teague Broadhead, Sam Mitchell, Kevin Landry Farr for the last 2 innings. Only gave up 1 hit and 1 run, and had a couple strikeouts too. So between Clark and the bullpen in that one, and it was a run rule win, 11-1, only went 8 innings. that was great to see. And again, the hit total, 11 hits in that one. Very efficient. 11 runs on 11 hits for the Golden Eagles. And then game 3, Camden Sundstrom, I thought he was outstanding for the most part. The only hiccup for him came in the bottom of the 5th inning, where he ended up giving up a grand slam in that one. But, other than that, he was pitching shutouts. Like he up to that point, they JMU couldn't touch him. So, he had that one hiccup, but it really didn't matter because in the top of the 5th, Golden Eagles got 6 runs to give them some cushion there. And then ultimately EAGS ended up winning it 10-5 in that game. And Ock and Crabtree were great in the bullpen closing it. And in the top of the 5th, in that game, the 6 runs I was talking about before James Madison got the grand slam, Bull had a 2 RBI double. Ben Higdon had a 3 RBI double. He cleared the bases. Bases were loaded. He cleared them. Everybody scored in the top of the 7th on that one. But that was the 2 big offensive moments in that game. Bulls 2 RBI double, top of the 5th. Higgs 3 RBI double in the top of the 7th. And top of the 5th, it was a single party. Like there was just single after single after single. And it's great to see because, this team has been so reliant on home runs and really doubles too for the first part of this year. And they've really shown some versatility here these last few weekends. And they're getting it done with the small ball. They're stealing more bases. We're seeing more bunts. It's really nice to see. And they're being successful with it too. And that is a great sign to see before postseason play starts. So some great stuff overall. Like I said, I think it's one of the more balanced weekends we've had in a long time. Joey Urban, big bounce back weekend. If you read my series preview on Southern Miss Golden Eagles on SI, that was one of my takeaways, that I thought it was going to be like a big bounce back weekend for Joey Urban. Because, look, he's one of the top offensive players on this team. And he went 1 of 12 against UL Monroe last weekend. That wasn't going to ever happen again. Joey is just too talented of a player. He's too experienced. He's a senior. And sure enough, he did. He had a big bounce back weekend. Went 6 of 15 at the plate on the weekend, which is 400 batting average. He had dipped below 300 batting average on the year briefly, but with this weekend's performance, he's back over it. And I wouldn't be shocked if he continues that as we head into postseason play. So we talked to Joey a little bit about it. He said, I think it's just trusting the work and not overthinking things. Baseball has ups and downs. So after a tough weekend, I just tried to stay confident, keep my approach simple, and focus on competing every at-bat. Thankfully, things started falling my way this weekend. And then while we're doing quotes here, this was one from Camden Clark in that second game. He said, I believe I'm getting more comfortable after every start. First few weeks weren't as comfortable being in a new role so soon. I think getting in a good routine and a good 7-day schedule between each start has made a huge impact. And again, he's outstanding. Like if you look at the metrics he was already one of the best closers in the nation by the numbers. Now he's one of the best starting pitchers in the nation by the numbers. It's a smaller sample size there just because it's only been a handful of weekends where he's done it now, but closer, starter, whatever, Camden Clark is 100% that dude. So it's been great to see. And then this was one from Colby Allen in that first game because, I asked him about this team's resiliency because through all the ups, through all the downs, this team never has any quit in them. They're always, no matter what the score is, they feel like they're always in it. They can always come back. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, but they have that internal belief. And, I just asked him, I was like, is it just the experience? Is it the confidence? How are you guys consistently able to do stuff like what we saw on Friday night? You're down by 3 runs in the 7th, and then you just blow it open. And not only do you take a 8-5 lead, then you completely slam the door on JMU from trying to come back from that, like Colby did. And he said it's a mixture of both experience and confidence. We never feel like we are out of the fight, no matter the score. We are a bunch of gritty guys who play for each other. So, like I said, overall, it was great to see all the improvements this week and all the consistency. Like, the Eagles are firing on all cylinders. And again, it couldn't be happening at a better time. I love seeing what Ty Long's doing. Love seeing Joey Urban bounce back. We're locked into a top 2 seed in the Sun Belt tournament now. Can't finish any lower than 2nd. So, guaranteed a bye. And then we're going to be locked into that this weekend series. Not just, obviously, we're playing Georgia Southern at the Pete, and that'll involve senior day and all that stuff. But Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns are playing Coastal in Lafayette this weekend. Coastal is coming off a very disappointing weekend series loss to Old Dominion. Upset series. It helped the Eagles out a bunch. They're only 1 game back of Coastal. So, and the Raging Cajuns, like I mentioned last week, they're pretty much fighting for their playoff lives because more than likely there's not going to be more than 2 at-large bids coming out of the Sun Belt. So they've got a lot to play for. It's their senior weekend in Lafayette. Probably the last – it will be the last time that those seniors play in Lafayette because, Raging Cajuns aren't hosting anything. So a lot of motivation on their end, and Coastal Carolina's slumping. This is not the same Coastal Carolina from last year. The pitching isn't nearly as sharp. It's been good. The Coastal pitching has been very good this year, and the hitting, that's one of those things where they can put double-digit runs on you in a hurry, but then there's also games where, they kind of fizzle out a little bit. Overall, the consistency just isn't – I would say this year's Southern Miss team resembles more of what Coastal was last year instead of Coastal this year, is my opinion. So I know how a lot of us feel about the Raging Cajuns, and, especially some characters in that fan base, which every fan base has some. I get it. But I think we're all going to be Raging Cajun fans for at least this weekend, because if they go in there and beat Coastal 2 out of those 3 games, and the Eagles take care of business and beat Georgia Southern, who's the worst team in the Sun Belt, has the worst ERA, team ERA over 8. And I get it. I said it last week. Numbers don't matter when you're talking about baseball because anything can happen on any given night. You don't want to take anybody lightly, and I'm not. But with that being said, we should take care of business this weekend. It should be another sweep. And there's just so much at stake, because if Raging Cajuns beat Coastal 2 out of the 3 games, the Eagles sweep Georgia Southern, not only do you get to 40 wins and extend the nation's longest 40-win streak with a decade straight of 40-win seasons, but then you also win the Sun Belt regular season title, which would be outstanding. So I think Louisiana is catching Coastal at the perfect time. Coastal's slumping a little bit. They're playing on the road, Coastal is, and I think the environment is right for the Eagles to kind of steal the regular season Sun Belt championship here at the very end in the last weekend before we go to Montgomery for the Sun Belt tournament, which I've already got our plans ready for that. We're going to be heading to Montgomery, so that'll be fun, and be on the lookout for more coverage, podcasts, and written coverage on Southern Miss Golden Eagles on SI. should be a great time in Montgomery. I know it was fun. It was fun last year, even though it didn't end the way we hoped it would. But it'll be great to go this year and actually be covering it this time and not just be there as a fan. So a couple other things moved up in the rankings. I probably should have mentioned that at the top of this thing, but moved up from number 12 to number 8 in both the Baseball America and D1 baseball rankings. I haven't looked at all of the other rankings, but I know the lowest ranking that Southern had coming into today was 10th, but most of them have them at 8th. The ones that really matter, the one that matters the most, in my opinion, is the D1 baseball, and we're at number 8 in that one. RPI moved up a couple spots, up to number 9 now. So, yeah, I mean, look, this is there for the taking. I mean, not just the chance to host a regional, but to potentially be guaranteed a chance to host super regionals as a top 8 seed in the tournament. That is well within play now. And, we definitely control our own destiny for the regional part. You take care of business this weekend. I don't think it matters what we do in the conference tournament. There's going to be a Hattiesburg regional. Like, y'all go ahead and mentally prepare for all that. So long as, we just win the series against Georgia Southern. If we sweep Georgia Southern and then we end up winning the conference tournament as well, and maybe you end up playing Coastal, but with how Coastal's playing, they may not even make it to the conference championship game. But if you do that, I think you're pretty much guaranteed a top 8 seed with how things have gone. So, that's an interesting wrinkle to add to the end of this season. Not just potentially winning the regular season Sunbelt Championship, not just securing a regional host, but to lock up a top 8 seed and then to have that in the players' mind, like, hey, we take care of business and win this regional with home field advantage. We get home field advantage one more time. And that is going to be the greatest opportunity to go to Omaha if you do that. So, especially with how everybody's clicking on all cylinders right now. So, I'm excited about it. This has been an outstanding season. It's flown by, y'all. I can't believe how fast this year has gone by. I've got the little calendar scoreboard card thing, that they gave us at the beginning of the season, where you go down through and you mark down the scores and the win losses and all that stuff. And I'm just looking at it, and it's just crazy that we have gotten to this point, and it's just flown by so quickly. Seems like it always does when you're having fun, and it's not fun all of the time, when you're going through those midseason lulls, but overall it's been a blast, and I hope it keeps going. I don't want this to be, a regional and that be it, like last season. I want this to go all the way. And, the guys are feeling the same way, because I talked to Ben Higdon after that Sunday sweep at James Madison, and I was just asking him, look, we got senior day coming up. Obviously, everybody's expecting a Hattiesburg regional, so there's probably going to be more home games in the immediate future aside from this weekend. But in all reality, these are the only 3 games at this moment that are guaranteed to be played at the Pete. So I was asking him about the emotions of that, and kind of the message that he would bring to his team going into this weekend. And he said, the message heading into this final series is simple from me: just win. There's a lot of stuff in front of us, as we know, but there's one common denominator to get it done, and that's us taking care of business and winning ball games. Hopefully all of us seniors can be celebrated after the last pitch is thrown in Omaha. Talk about, fire me up, Higgy. That was that's one of those things where it's just like, they know what's up. They know that, where this could lead to. We've said it all season long. The talent is there. The depth is there, on both sides of the ball. They just got to go out there and do it. And a symmetrical thing that I wanted to bring up that's kind of rare, to see something like this happen. So everybody talked about the 15-2 start. It was outstanding. Several top-ranked wins in that 15-2 start, the first 17 games. If the Golden Eagles come out and sweep Georgia Southern this weekend, in the final 17 games of this season, they would have, you guessed it, a 15-2 record. So you'd have bookend there, 15-2 start, 15-2 finish, and then, a 40-win season heading into postseason play. So hopefully all that works out. Again, Georgia Southern, they've got the third best batting average in the Sun Belt. They've got the third most hits in the Sun Belt. But as far as their fielding and their pitching and, pretty much everything else, it's just kind of bottom of the barrel type of situation. So if the Golden Eagles can carry over the offensive momentum they found in Harrisonburg this past weekend, and I think they will, just because not only are you coming back home, or not only are you playing the worst team in the Sun Belt, but you're playing at home too. There's just a lot of momentum there. And I'm knocking on wood as I say this, because I don't want people saying I'm jinxing it, but I just think the environment is right for things to go our way at this point. We've been through the ups and downs. We've seen what it's like to ride a high and then to have disappointment immediately follow it. The guys should know how to handle that now. And now it's just about being steady and going out there and doing your job. And I'm fully expecting that to be the case going into this last weekend. So very excited, very exciting times for Southern Miss baseball and really Southern Miss athletics in general. It's been a great time. And baseball season, I covered football on the podcast this past football season. I covered basketball season as well. But as far as like the writing aspect of it, the podcast and writing for Southern Miss Golden Eagles on SI, baseball season was my first full season with all that in the swing of things. So it's been very, very fun. Everybody's been great. I appreciate all the support for all of you who listen and for all of you who click those links and, read my work. I greatly appreciate that. And I hope that this is just, the beginning of a long and, successful time doing all that. So, and hopefully I get to put a Omaha dateline on a couple of those articles here in the next month or however long it is until we get to that point. So, okay. So I've got some notes here. Got a couple of shout outs before we take off here. So congrats to the USM softball team. Had a great season. Natalie Poole's done a great job with that program, has it headed in the right direction. They went into the Sun Belt tournament as the 4 seed, and I believe they were picked either last or second to last before the season started. So they greatly outperformed expectations and, proved a lot of people wrong. Ended up, their season ended in the Sun Belt tournament, lost to South Alabama. I don't feel like, it's single elimination. I feel like if you get the 4 seed, if you're as high as a 4 seed, I don't know why they have that as single elimination. So that was kind of puzzling to me. I thought it would be kind of like the baseball tournament where, it's single elimination for the lower tier, double elimination for the top tier, and then the top 2 get a bye. But hey, whatever the Sun Belt thinks, but I would have had it double elimination for those top seeds. And then also congratulations to USM men's golf for making the first ever NCAA tournament appearance. in program history. They're going to the Athens Regional as the 11 seed, and that starts later this month. Head coach Eddie Brescher, he's done a great job. I got to talk to him briefly following the announcement of the golf team making a regional. He said, "I've always said it was only a matter of time for Southern Miss to be a postseason program. That time has come, and I am so proud of our team. Our support system in Hattiesburg is top notch. Those who have supported us for years are now seeing the returns on those investments. We are honored to be the first team to represent Southern Miss in the postseason, but we know the foundation was laid today." So, and also our guy, Charlie Lanehart, he's an intern writer for Southern Miss Golden Eagles on SI. He's got a very interesting interview coming up here in the next probably week, maybe a little bit sooner, with Philip Sakota. So that'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on, and ahead of that that first regional for men's golf. And then last thing I want to touch on here was the men's basketball team, because look, I know everybody was kind of upset with not being able to retain Tyleek Weeks and Isaac Tavares, and well, maybe not upset, but just disappointed, because I think most of us kind of figured that was going to happen, given the sheer amount of money that those dudes were receiving. Like I'm pretty sure Tyleek Weeks was pretty close to $2 million going to Memphis. It was a little less than that, but I he got that, and you can't, as a mid-major, you're limited unless you just get some massive donations out of somewhere you weren't expecting. But with that being said, I mean, I think the Coach Ladner and his coaching staff, his assistant coaches, I think they've done a great job in the portal. I was watching some film earlier today and kind of familiarizing myself with some of these new guys. And, first of all, you got the players returning. I'm looking at my list here, confirmed players returning, Brewer Caruth, Falou Diagne, he's coming back, stretch big, which, I mean, I guess he technically is, listed as a forward, but, he could be a stretch big. You got EJ Payman, the former number 1 recruit in the state back in 2024, redshirted at Mississippi State. And, he's going to have more experience heading into this next year as a redshirt sophomore. So we could see some big things from him. Chandler Watts, Blake Lander, those are the players returning. And then the portal. But yeah, as far as portal additions, like there's so many intriguing names on here. So, you got just to name a few. So Cam Wallace, you got Jalik Gaines-Watt, you got Cy Merritt, Anthony Agiti. I may have butchered his last name there, but that's what it sounded like on those on those tapes I was watching. Hearing the announcer say his name, but Michael Montano. You got Marcus Overstreet, Brandon Weston, Camden Ceres, Elliot Tulip. Let's see here. Dorian Bowen, DeAndre Harvey. So that's pretty much all the guys, coming in. And from the film I've watched, it seems like there is a great mix of athleticism, size, three-point shooting, ball handling. Obviously these guys have to, and I posted this on the podcast on X, but obviously these guys have to come out and mesh on the court for it to mean anything. But just from raw talent and the type of players that they appear to be, it seems like they should be able to mesh pretty well. And we've seen what this coaching staff can do, getting a bunch of new players last year. I'd say the majority of us didn't know who Tyleek Weeks or Isaac Tavares were before last season, and we saw how that turned out, and the team ended up meshing at the right time at the end of the year after getting over some of the injury stuff and making a deep tournament run, even though they were kind of handicapped by being a lower seed and had to run into some stamina issues. So I think, given the type of players that are coming in, I could see it being a little bit easier to get off to a better start this next season, because the floor spacing is going to be better, in my opinion. I don't think there's going to be as much of stagnant offense at times, just based on what I'm seeing. And like I said, they have to go out there and prove it by meshing on the court. But just from the type of players they are, I don't think that's going to be a hard thing to happen. So maybe they can gel pretty quick. And like I said, we're going to do a more in-depth pod on men's basketball and the guys coming in. And, we'll get you all a bunch of information about, how these new players did at their previous stops, and, what types of players they are, what to expect from certain guys heading into this next season. And it should be great. We'll have everybody informed on all those dudes before, basketball season rolls back around. And then obviously football is going to be coming up here pretty soon. And, there was a spring training, and, they're still got to figure out who's going to be the starting quarterback and all that stuff. But, we don't have to tell everybody, about football. That's going to be a big ordeal. And, we'll get more locked into that as well once we get past baseball season. But right now, baseball is king. They are top 10, and they are looking to do big things beyond just hosting a regional. And, if they were to break through and get to Omaha and, just best case scenario, win a championship, that would be absolutely unbelievable, not just for the program, but for the university as a whole. And I am crossing my fingers, and I am praying and hoping that that's the case. So, well, y'all, thanks for coming in and listening to me ramble for, nearly 40 minutes now. Greatly appreciate all the love and support. And you can find me on X at Dalton_Trigg. You can find the pod account at Nasty Bunch Pod on X or on Instagram. We also have a Southern Miss Golden Eagles on SI Facebook page where I'm posting all of the article links and everything. So be sure to follow us on all the social media platforms. We've got stuff rolling out every single day. And again, we greatly appreciate the support. So y'all have a great rest of your day. Have a great week. And we will see you next time, probably around this same time next week, unless something happens that warrants an emergency pod. So y'all have a good one. We'll see you next time.